Hello, Lucas.
Hey Jess, thank you
How's
so much
it
for
going?
having me.
Thank you so much. Oh, yes, thank you for being interviewed. I've admired your work for so long, and I'm super happy to interview you. I think people are really gonna enjoy this interview. And yeah, so I'm just gonna for those of you who don't know Lucas, he and I met at the Grand Central Atelier. I was taking classes there for a couple of years, and Lucas was there, and we just got to talking, and we became friends. And Lucas is from Los Angeles, and he was educated at the Grand Central Atelier in New York and received his BFA in painting at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. His work explores the mystery of ontology and how it relates to the surroundings we share. He does with his contrast of traditional and contemporary paint handling, always in an attempt as to reflect past gifts and curiosities of the avant-garde. Lucas has exhibited in numerous group and juried exhibitions across the US and internationally, and a few honors and awards recently given to him was winning first place Portrait Society of America annual members competition for non-commissioned portrait, Best in Show award for bold brush painting competition, and the Purchase Prize and Best in Show for the annual exhibition held at SCNY, New York. His work has also been on the cover of American Art Collector magazine, as well as featured in Fine Art Connoisseur, Southwest Art, American Artist, and International Artist magazine, among other publications. Currently, Lucas is based in New York, although not for this interview, where he works from his studio and travels regularly to teach short-term workshops both in the US and abroad. That about covers it. And that's read
Yeah,
just from your website.
yeah,
So,
that's an intro there.
what'd you say?
Um, that's a pretty big intro. Like I'm like, oh wow, I did all of that.
Yes, yes, you did. And where are you calling from today?
So I'm calling from Buenos Aires. I'm out here visiting family. I
Mhm,
live in Manhattan with my wife.
mhm.
However, um, I'm from Los Angeles, lived there my whole life, but my family, everyone moved out
Mhm.
to Buenos Aires. So
Oh,
I sort of call Buenos Aires more of my home now.
mhm.
Uh, all my family's here.
Oh, very
Then
cool.
yeah, but I still feel more Californian than New York. So I'm kind
Okay.
of yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up in California.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My whole life I wanted to be a painter.
Mhm.
I went to Italy to visit some family out there once, and they have one of my drawings from when I was 3 years old, and was
Oh
telling
my
them that I
gosh.
wanted her. Yeah, as this like little baby, and then by the time I was 7, I was already starting to take my first nude figure drawing classes in Los
Wait, what?
Angeles. Yeah.
Where
So
do they let kids do that?
yeah, my mom had to sign, like, a waiver, because I wasn't 18 yet,
Mhm.
18 or older to be doing something like that, and so at 7, I was already taking nude figure drawing classes. I was doing, like, little master copies in elementary school, and
Mhm.
I ended up getting suspended for doing a Leonardo da Vinci master copy, and then my mom came, like, to defend me and say, like, "He's very serious about this," and
Mhm.
so I ended up not getting suspended,
Wait,
because it was
why would they
yeah.
suspend you? Because you were supposed to do, like, math problems or something?
There was nudity in the Leonardo da Vinci master copy.
Oh. Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, so believe it or not, over that, I was in the process of getting suspended, and, like, my mom literally came to the school and just
Mhm.
kind of fought them off and said, "He takes this very serious."
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and around this time, I was about 7 years old, and I had been acting in films as an extra in Los Angeles, like in Hollywood, just doing little things here and there. And my last film was as a little kid was with Tom Cruise, a movie called Magnolia, but I was just the extra in the background. Um,
Oh my gosh, I had no idea about that with you.
7 years old, and I was an extra in this film, and then I I was talking with Tom Cruise, and he gave me a piece of gum to chew on,
Mhm,
and um, and I remember just like, oh yeah, this is normal,
mhm.
and my just being like, you shouldn't have put that piece of gum in your mouth. You should have kept it as a souvenir. But I was like, what? Like I was just a little kid, like
Mm,
with all these acting opportunities. But then, believe it or not, that same year, I quit acting and said that it's distracting me from being a painter.
at 7 years
So
old.
at 7 years old, so I've always just been like, that's it. Like I always had tried different things, like
Mhm,
even as a teenager, I tried different things, but I just always went back to just strictly just saying I'm a
mhm,
painter.
mhm.
And so by the time I was a teenager, I was taking classes in Pasadena Art Center,
Mhm,
weekend classes like just in a college to get
mhm,
some some figurative practice in
mhm,
and stuff like that. But it wasn't until after, as many people, as this happens with many people, that after you go and graduate high school, like you have to be out in the real world and kind of decide what you're doing. So it
yeah,
wasn't until then that I kind of officially said, okay, I'm gonna really focus on this. And so I moved to Italy. I um, I was going to a school called Lorenzo de Medici
mhm,
in Italy, in Florence. And then after that semester, I did a semester in Buenos Aires here,
mhm.
and then I just went full force in Academy of Art University in San Francisco for almost 5 years, where I
Wow.
was just strictly just kind of dedicated in the practice of painting. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like the timeline
Mhm,
of me just really trying to develop technique. And I think what's very important about art universities, which is maybe harder to find than ateliers, is also having that kind of well-rounded education of the art world
mm,
and different styles and subject matter and stuff like that. And
mhm,
so during this time, I was taking a lot of different like art business classes and stuff like that.
mhm,
And so uh, at like around 10, 13 was when I just said like, that's it. I'm just gonna only be full time. Um, I was working in a furniture store for uh, about half a year,
mhm,
and I said I either have to just have this stability,
mhm,
or I have to figure out a way to just like quit it all and take the risk and try to
mhm,
live off of my painting. So I
mhm,
ended up taking that, which is all like taking the leap is always not easy at first, and
mhm,
so I ended up downsizing to like a
mhm.
very small kind of studio in San Francisco
And,
where I was
how old
close
were
to
you when
school.
you
And
decided that?
what was that?
Oh, how old were you when you decided to do that, like, go all in?
Yeah, so I was 22 years old,
Okay. Mhm,
22 years old when I just said, that's it. Like, I'm just gonna live off my paintings and find a way to make that work.
mhm,
Um, I am a bit of a black and white person, a bit of an extremist. And
mhm,
so the way that I thought that that would work was also it was a decision that really kind of affected me like mentally, because I was living in this place where it was just these tiny studio apartments, and it was full of people that were homeless at one point or had gone to prison at one point.
Oh my god.
Um, it was like,
Mhm.
yeah, n- like narco trafficking, like all sorts of different crazy things that people were doing there. And I was just telling myself, you know what, like you're just here to sleep. Like
Mhm.
you're just gonna paint all day and just be there to sleep.
Mm.
And so I was never there during the day. I would just go there late at night, get my like 6 hours of sleep, and then right back to painting in the studio.
Mm.
And this was in this was just one block from the Transamerica Pyramid in the downtown of San Francisco. So
Okay.
I always made the joke if I were to run to safety from all these crazy people, like I would just run out of my apartment and be surrounded by a bunch of rich people with suitcases heading to their
Okay.
like job financial district. So it's usually back, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I felt very safe outside my home. Let's
Okay.
um but yeah, I guess that was just kind of the way that I made it work for the time being
Mhm.
was getting connected with different galleries by going to openings and talking with the curators and just having that kind of work ethic where I was only just kind of using my place as a place to sleep, but then during the day just really hard at work. I
Mhm.
guess also the nice thing was that this university offered me the opportunity to have my homework be gallery work. So whatever
Mm.
I was for the classes
Mhm.
had the destination of going to the gallery.
Mhm.
Um, and right now in my final year, because I haven't graduated yet, I'm in Grand Central Atelier at the moment. In my final year, I am kind of feeling those kinds of pressures where at the moment everything I'm producing is more of they're just studies,
Mhm.
whereas at the art university it gives you this kind of setting where everything you produce has potential to make it into a gallery.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's there's a beauty in it
Mhm.
because of the folks, and there's also uh, the fact that you I have to kind of live these two different lifestyles and also be a gallery painter outside of school. So it kind of gives me
Mhm.
a lot of work on my hands, but it's well worth the work since the focus is figurative and academic, and it really allows me to kind of reestablish my
Yeah.
foundations. But
So,
yeah.
thank you for all that. So that was in San Francisco, and a couple questions about your time there. So, did are you like the first artist in your family? Like, where do you think that you got the bug for art?
Well, my dad, he was an architect. My mom had like a little school where they would have like summer camp that it was like summer art camp. And
Mhm.
so I feel that I got it from them definitely, and they always encouraged it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I didn't have that kind of typical story where I went against my parents and
Okay.
like didn't want to become a doctor or something like that. It was just always that they were like, "You want to try maybe different things associated with art?" And I would just be like, "No, I'm just a painter."
Mhm. Okay.
So I just always ignored it too. But they always encouraged me to just keep pursuing painting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, and then I have another question that I know that the audience is going to want to hear, people listening. So, when you were 22 and you decided, okay, I'm going to strictly live off of my art. So, and you, did you have a plan or were you just kind of like, I'm just going to see how this works and try to sell from my studio and also work with galleries? Or were you like, I'm just going to work with galleries?
At the moment, I was only thinking of galleries,
Hmm.
and that was because back then in 2013, I didn't have a developed Instagram or social media or even my website was just a blog back then. It
Mhm,
wasn't like an actual website. So I was heavily invested in just figuring out how to sell through galleries. And
mhm.
so I applied to a show called the 50/50 show where you have to make 50 paintings in 50 days, and they're
Whoa.
just by sixes.
Mhm.
I know it was a lot of work, and at the same time, I had two shows lined up with a gallery there called Studio Gallery. So I was making a painting for Studio Gallery, and at the same time, I had to do 50 paintings in 50 days. And so I would be going kind of back and forth, like putting a lot of work into a couple paintings for a couple shows that I got just from kind of being active
Mhm,
and talking with the guys and
mhm,
seeing how I could get more involved in the art in San Francisco.
mhm.
And then the other one was just online that I had found this show, and it was out in Pacifica. And so I was kind of going back and forth. And so if I were to paint like, 2 days on a big painting, then I had to spend one full day doing three little paintings because I fell behind on the on the 50/50
Right.
show. And so it was like this constant kind of um it was I would think of it as like a positive feedback loop where I was very motivated
Mhm,
doing these shows
mhm.
um because I had a deadline to work up towards,
Okay. Mhm,
and I had to choose subject matter that I really loved.
mhm.
Um
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And then I know that artists will also, I think this will be helpful for them to hear from you as well. Do you have a story for like what was the first gallery that you started working with and how did that happen for you? And then secondly, what advice would you give for artists during COVID-19 who want to seek gallery representation if they can't mingle at art events?
Yeah, so my first gallery, I guess if I were to rewind a little bit, it wasn't even a gallery, it was just a cafe in
Okay.
Los Angeles was like my kind of actual thing. Um, and so I just put up my paintings all over this cafe in Los Angeles, and it was a lot of hard work. I didn't think anything was going to come out of it, but then I ended up selling six paintings.
Wow.
And I said, wow, this is a thing. I
Mhm,
can actually, um, you know, kind of live off of this maybe.
mhm,
And that was while I was still working um, for like this furniture store. So that
mhm,
was in 2012.
mhm,
And then, and then in at 2013, that's when I got to work with this official gallery named Studio Gallery.
mhm,
And that gallery, I still work with them. They're
mhm,
really friendly, and I think it's extremely important to work with curators and gallery owners where they're just extremely friendly and warm and mean no harm, because there's definitely galleries out there that tend to kind of
mhm.
abuse their artists, like take advantage of their artists,
Yeah.
and pretty much so like a relationship where you just have trust
Mhm,
between each other.
mhm,
It's in good hands when you give the work to them.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, the first official one was this gallery called Studio Gallery, and if I were to say anything about selling during the pandemic,
mhm,
um, is that at this moment in time, while everyone is has their back turned on the art world because of fear or some anxieties with selling work or getting there in person or etc. Um, this is the time that you really have to be trying to get into the art world, and it
mhm,
seems kind of counterintuitive, but this is really the moment in time that gallery owners are actually paying attention to the emails that they're receiving,
Mhm,
or even small chats from a social distanced opening,
mhm,
uh,
mhm,
really pay attention to the artist, and they want to really hear what you have to say. Whereas
mhm,
before, they they would um, just kind of ignore every email that would come their way.
mhm,
So yeah, what I would say right now is this: you like take advantage of the fact that people are paying attention right now,
mhm.
because it's the art market is really on your side in this moment in time.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed too. So I hosted a virtual exhibition this year, and it went so much better than I ever thought that it could have, because everyone is online so much more these days. And you have so much more control over your audience, also how you present yourself, online and stuff. Um, so if you really think about it and like really go after whatever you want, then you know, it's possible. And I think that you're right with like there's less competition right now. I think that there's less competition for those gatekeepers in the art world, whereas before so much was happening like all the time that they would just get really overwhelmed and like not be able to respond to all these people. But now, for instance, like I just got into this residency and I've applied to lots of residencies and I haven't gotten in, but I just got into a residency. And I think part of it may be like, the competition is not quite so high because, people aren't thinking about expanding during this time. And I think it's like investing, like you're actually supposed to invest when the market's really down. And then if you do that, then your stocks and bonds will like skyrocket. You'll be able to, get more for your money, you will say. Um, but the art world, I think, is the same. If you really, start pushing now, you'll be able to see much more returns because the competition is lower. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but the most success I've had in my career was during the pandemic.
Really?
Um, yeah, and it's because of this reason.
Mhm,
I just had this hunch, like, oh, this is the time that people are going to be online, and
mhm,
that I should invest more in selling my own work.
mhm,
And so, I ended up moving out of Long Island City. I was living in Long Island City to be just one block from
mm,
the school I'm going to. But now, I'm living in Manhattan, and I got to move on May 1st, and I tripled my square footage. I have a painting studio for the first time in my life.
hmm,
It's just kind of all mine, and I'm so excited about it. And it was again this this kind of view on the whole thing, that we should be taking the risk when no one else is willing to take it, because they are kind of holding back during this period, like you mentioned.
mhm,
And so, um, I got a lot of sales through Instagram, through collectors that I was just talking with
mhm,
personally. And I was also really involved in doing commissions more than I normally am. But it
mhm.
seemed like, I guess, being in your house in quarantine and looking at the empty wall,
Yeah.
um, I guess it's the time to do commissions, because they're just looking at the empty wall and just reaching out more so than usual.
Mhm,
Yeah, so really, this is the moment for growth, just like you said. It's the moment to invest in yourself. And
mhm.
so yeah, it I I had I had made probably more this year than I ever had, off of painting,
That's awesome.
just for that reason. Yeah.
And I have to say it's the same for me, which is crazy. But and you could say You could say that it's just like all the work that you've done throughout the years is maybe starting to really come to fruition as well. Um, so it could just be like the perfect
Yeah.
storm. But so let's go back to your time in California. So you finished up your degree there. And then what brought about you moving to the East Coast?
Yeah, so I moved out of San Francisco and I didn't go straight to the East Coast. I ended up moving to Aspen, Colorado for almost a year. Um, because my wife actually got a J1 visa for Aspen, Colorado, but it was very difficult for the East Coast or the West Coast.
Oh,
So we ended up, yeah, it was just out of convenience, I guess. That she moved to Aspen, Colorado. I moved there too. And during this time, I always like to say that there's multiple streams of income that come from painting, that
hmm
it's not just about uh, selling work through a gallery, it's about selling work through social media or, yes, of course, there's galleries, but also there's prints, there's small works, there's commissions, there's like, teaching sessions online, doing competitions. There's just all these different ways that you can get income through painting. And so when I moved to Aspen, Colorado, I said, okay, I'm basically in the middle of the forest here. Um, how am I gonna mold the way I make money off painting? And I decided to uh, focus on prints. So I was actually living off of prints for half a year
oh,
in
wow.
Aspen, Colorado.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it was basically only prints, believe it or not,
hmm
that I was living. I I found a really good um, guy that prints for he prints for the Museum of Aspen.
hmm
So I knew his prints were very good quality because of that reason. And so I was working with him and selling my prints at a fraction of the cost of the originals, but they were so high quality that that the collectors were very excited to receive them. So I yeah, for half a year I was living off of prints, um and then I lived like about a month off of an art competition that I had won, and then um and then I ended up getting like a few sales. But
hmm
during that time it was pretty stagnant.
hmm
Um and that's around the time that I went to New York, and I started school at Grand Central Atelier, like
hmm
literally the day that I showed up.
hmm
Um, and it was such a fantastic community at school
hmm
because just the amount of focus that has gone into just technique. I felt like I was getting the missing link from what I didn't get in art university,
hmm
where I was thin just all throughout.
hmm
I felt that finally I'm just focusing on one thing and really trying to get good at it.
hmm
Um, yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent just now.
No, that explains like why you decided to go there. So, so that's really cool. And how did you like the East Coast as compared to the West Coast?
I feel like both are very different from one another in aesthetic. Like the West Coast, probably because of the surroundings, the paintings tend to be more colorful
Mhm,
and slightly more on the surface, not so deep and thought provoking.
mhm,
A little bit more on the surface, I feel. In the East Coast, it might be the culture, the weather, like all these different factors that kind of go into the paintings, but it does feel like it's provokes a little bit more of maybe a narrative, and that narrative can sometimes be more serene,
mm,
um, and the colors aren't so hyped up like
mm,
on the West Coast.
mhm,
I definitely love both places, and like the friends I have on the West Coast and on the East Coast, like I feel like all the stereotypes had just vanished from me,
Mhm,
where people say like they're so serious on the East Coast, and it's such an aggressive culture or something like that. But I really don't find that to be true at all.
mhm,
Is and that stereotype actually just kind of the moment the moment I got to New York, the stereotype left.
mhm.
Because the moment I got to New York, like I was just struggling with some luggage on the stairs, and a New Yorker was like, "Let me help you with these bags." And I was like, "Okay, okay." The stereotype's not true. It was like from day one, I was like, the stereotype's not true.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I've had the same experience in New York, like, I feel like New Yorkers are very, very kind, very nice. Whenever you stop someone on the street, they're always, like, happy to help you, if you need directions or something. Yeah, I live in Philadelphia right now, and I feel like New York is actually friendlier than Philadelphia. But,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. I'm a fan. I think it's an awesome place. So, yeah, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about your work ethic. So, with all the people who are watching this now, of Lucas, or you're just being introduced to Lucas. He is very accomplished as a painter technically, and he's also starting to really be recognized by all these different contests, and he's won a lot of prizes. He's exhibiting all these different places. So people see all the wins, but I would love to hear from you what your usual schedule is as a working artist and how many hours per day you're working on painting per week. Do you think that you're working on painting? um, yeah, so if you could just walk us through like kind of the work that goes into being a painter professionally.
Yeah, so my day starts off, you know, 8:30 to 12:30. I'm working on a figure at school, and then 1 to 5, I'm working on another figure. So every single day, I'm working with figures from life at school, and
Mm.
then when I get out at 5, I go home, eat dinner real quick, but then I just immediately go to painting for a couple hours, and then I teach on Zoom for a couple hours, a few times a week.
Oh, okay.
So,
Wait,
yeah, the
so
day
how is there enough hours in the day?
yeah, the day is really jam-packed, but this is really the way that I have to, keep the system going, because if I don't do the couple hours every day of painting at home, I don't have the gallery shows that I have every month. And
Mm.
so the gallery shows don't come from the studies that I'm doing,
Oh.
because the academic, kind of, traditional nudes, and those are just only with the thoughts of technique.
Mhm.
Not that they don't sell, they sell very well on Instagram. Um, but when I'm reaching a market, with a higher, price bracket, and I'm doing gallery works, for maybe like a show in Chelsea, New York, or something like that, I'm working on very large scale paintings, that are in my own style, maybe a little looser. And so I like to say that I am kind of living these two different lives, where I'm an academic painter all day, and then at night I'm uh, I'm just really pursuing what my voice is, who am
Mhm.
I as a painter,
Mm.
and going to galleries that fit that aesthetic specifically.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'll either have a Zoom session with a student internationally. That's been going on for a few years. Not It hasn't been just because of the pandemic. For
Mhm.
some odd reason, I just really like being able to paint and then just be like, oh, in 5 minutes I have to teach,
Yeah.
rather than having to come. somewhere or something like that. So
Oh,
that's just
yeah,
been,
definitely.
and also you get to meet all these like fun people from different countries, like
Mhm,
Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, London. Like you're just spending time with these interesting people that have like their own different thoughts about painting, and
mhm,
they want completely different things. Like maybe they're doing abstraction, or maybe they're doing something very realistic, and
mhm,
everyone is different. Um, and I would say that, believe it or not, at some point during the day, I do have to invest about an hour into art business.
mhm.
Uh, and so it's not really so much about technique.
Mhm.
Um, it's about art, like how much you're investing into art business.
So what does
Uh,
that mean for you?
so what that means for me is that every Thursday, I make sure that my schedule is empty after I get out of school, so that I can go to at least 3 or 4 openings in Manhattan, and get to talk with different collectors and gallery owners, curators,
Mm,
really get to socialize. Even during the pandemic, I'm doing that, and it is more like social distanced, but there's always a way. Now people, instead of exchanging cards, they're exchanging Instagram handles and stuff like
mhm,
that at a
mhm,
distance. And then during the week, what I'm doing is I'm contacting galleries. I'm applying to art competitions, magazines, all sorts of things. And then I'm also doing about, I would say on average, about 3 openings a month. And
mhm,
and these openings are, before, because I was very much so transitioning from the West Coast to the East Coast,
mhm,
I was having to put paintings out almost once a week.
mhm,
And now I kind of reduced that number to more like maybe once every few months. So I'm
mhm,
really just showing in the East Coast lately.
mhm,
Um, but probably the most important thing for me to say is that uh, I am really thinking of this as a numbers game, as something that has to do with quantity.
mhm,
So if I apply to, I don't know, something like 45 galleries, I'm
mhm,
probably going to expect one yes.
mhm,
Uh, and and these galleries, I want them to really have something about them that resonates with my work, and I want it to be that I'm the right fit. And so finding them, and understanding how I'm going to be the right fit and expressing that to them, that takes the majority of my time when I'm working on art business.
mhm.
So I would say, like, I probably don't send any more than just about like 4 or 5 emails a week.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, because
yeah,
you want it to be
and
personalized.
personalized, yeah.
Okay, so that is so helpful for artists listening because I think that there's a misconception in for artists that if you just get good enough, everything will come to you. Like all the galleries will be knocking down your door. People will just like give you money. People will just give you um everything. Like you literally won't have to apply to anything. You'll just like make amazing work and just like people will like just hail you as the king of painting and and you won't have to like apply to anything. Um I've just I've known so many artists who have um, that kind of attitude, especially if, they've been doing it a while. Let's say that they're like maybe getting close to 30 and they've really dedicated their life to art. Um, I've found that artists can get a bit like jaded, like, well, I've put in my time and, you know, if they don't recognize it, then that's their fault. But
Yeah.
but actually, I think that what I really admire about how you're doing things is you're staying really humble and you're taking your ego out of it, it seems. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely also don't take anything personal.
Mhm.
So, um, in fact, whenever I get a rejection letter, it really makes my day because it means that I actually got a rejection letter rather than just have in the back of my head, oh, did they respond yet? And just being, really kind of anxious about a response. And so if I am constantly getting ignored and then all of a sudden I get a rejection letter and they say, oh, we love your work, um, but right now we're not accepting painters. I'll be like, oh my gosh, like this super prestigious gallery
Mhm.
that sells paintings for like hundreds of thousands of dollars said that they love my work.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I'm so happy that I got this rejection letter, and so but maybe that would torture someone, like, oh my gosh, I got this rejection letter, and they just feel
Mhm.
horrible.
Mhm.
Um, I really think that if you just keep yourself out of it and you just think of your own work objectively
Mhm.
and say like this is just part of being a painter,
Mhm.
um, you can just really start being way more active and applying to things that you would never even think of that you could get into and work your way up to actually getting into those things.
Yeah.
So it is work, yeah.
Yeah, it's like just keeping your head down and okay, I just remembered I did I recorded a podcast about this concept of being your own advocate. So like almost like when you're doing the part where you're like reaching out to galleries and doing all this stuff, almost pretending like you're just representing the artist. Like you have to like remove yourself from like the artist part of you. Like you're just representing the artist right now and you have to think of yourself as like if this person was my client, how would I take care of them? You know what I mean? So that's really cool.
Uh, yeah, and that also goes hand in hand with technique. It's kind of like as you're painting and you're looking at your own paintings, eventually at some point you invite the editor in
Mhm.
to kind of critique like this work.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like a writer that's hard at work in like his or her office, and then all of a sudden the editor comes in, and we don't want the editor to always come in because then they would just be like blabbing in our ear about grammar corrections and stuff like that. But if you invite the editor at the right time, then you can look at your work objectively and
Mhm.
really something forward. And I feel like the same thing is true with art business. It's kind of like if you're just constantly just going at it,
Mhm.
um, almost this naive kind of way where you're not just being hypercritical and taking everything personal, then I feel like as you're going for it, if you get a rejection letter or something like that, you can only just think of it as being something positive and inviting the editor at the right time
Mhm.
to just look at everything objectively and
Mhm.
just say, well, we have to do this, this, and that, but you're going the right direction.
Mhm.
It keeps you kind of in check.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's so good. I love that analogy. So good. Okay, so what are you working on these days? What are you excited about that you're working on?
So at the moment, I'm developing a series called The Forest,
Mm,
and it has to do with beauty and chaos. And I've always lived in the city, so I always have felt like this chaotic feeling of the city. But
mhm,
then also, like as you capture so beautifully in your work, like the interpretation of the forest. So I'm thinking of like the clash between those two as being contrasting elements in my work, and the feeling about them both clashing just like creates these kind of splashes of color and interpretation that helps me kind of mold my new series. So at the moment, I completed the first painting that's literally called The Forest, and it's 40 by 60 inches. So I believe it's the largest work I've ever done, actually. Um, yeah, so that's one that I just finished, and so I'm just working towards another few. Something that reminds me of is a lot of the time artists ask me, what is the right number to submit to galleries? And I would say one is the right number because they're
Really?
always thinking, yeah, like there's so many artists out there that are thinking, oh, I'm gonna make a ton of paintings, and then the ton of paintings is gonna make me good enough to then do 10 paintings for this body of work that I'm gonna submit to the. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, can you just submit right now to the gallery that you want to get into?
Mhm.
Because you might get surprised that that gallery will say yes. And it
Mhm.
might not be the first gallery that you submit to. Like I said earlier, it may take several attempts, but if you keep thinking about the mentality of, oh, I'll just do that tomorrow, it's
Mm.
probably going to happen. We
Mhm.
have to transition and mature both in painting and in our business,
Mhm.
kind of together. And just doing one but putting off the other is
Mhm.
usually what leads artists down the rabbit hole of needing stability in something that isn't art related at all.
Yeah.
Which is not,
Mhm.
sometimes that really works for painters because they have the opportunity to kind of um, take a rest from painting and just uh, really focus on painting and focus on their job kind of separately, and they like having that in their life.
Mhm.
I'm more of like the type of person that is just trying to make it all work together.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point as well. Hmm. So the forest, that sounds really cool. I can't wait to see those paintings. That sounds amazing. Um, yeah, that's so cool. And is that going to be like a solo show, or are you just do you have like a big unveiling planned?
right. So I do have a gallery in Chelsea that I'm working with. I'm very excited that we are planning something out for the future that's going to be a solo show, but
Mhm.
nothing is concrete in the plans yet. So no
Mhm.
name dropping yet. But
Okay.
yeah. But the works are going to be uh, large scale paintings. Some are going to be like multi-figure,
Mhm.
others are going to be still life. Before I moved to New York, I was mainly just known as a still life painter, and so now I am trying to kind of be half half. Like I'm trying
Mhm.
to go in both directions together.
Mhm.
I really love doing both.
Yeah, your
Uh,
still lifes are really interesting. You seem to make the objects really have a lot of personality, which I really love.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you would like to tell artists who are maybe in school right now or just finished up school about, wondering about how to take the next steps in the art world? Any words of wisdom?
I would say that what I would like to contribute is to go after something that is the deepest version of yourself, and just look for that depth through painting, um, because that's the way you really find it. When we just say, okay, like I'm going to be doing these paintings and I'm going to be going for these paintings, but there's something else that's bearing inside of me that I can't let out. I think that cannot be ignored, and you have to let it out. And I
Mm,
hear things in a atelier like setting all the time.
mm,
Oh, there's this series that I'm thinking of doing, and I'm gonna, put it off for the summer. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like, if you have that buried inside of you, you have to go deep into yourself and really discover what that is now.
mhm,
Um, and even if that means just an hour a day or
mm,
half an hour, some exploration,
mhm,
that's really um, what other people are going to want to see,
Mhm.
no matter what the technical level is. They want to
That is
see
so
that.
true. Yes, because sometimes you see a work and it can just be like a few lines on a paper, and there's something about like the spark of that work that's so it just really touches you, or it really reflects the artist so well. Um, and I think that inspiration like that, like when it really comes from the heart like that, no matter the person's technical ability, it like has the capacity to reach other people, you know? And I think that's what art's all about, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, yeah, and I really get that from your work too. The narrative and like that kind of profound feeling really comes from, and also I feel like you are part of your paintings,
Oh,
very much so. And I saw a video that you did the other day also that was really
yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, that
Wow,
was
like
funny.
such
I, I live I'll tell you a secret. I live, in Philadelphia in, like, row homes, but, like, we're across from, like, a state park, and so, like, we had just had the snow and, like, everyone's out there, like, walking their dogs and, like, shoveling things, and I'm out there in this, like, in this big white dress and, like, this, like, um, this red cape that was, like, made from a tablecloth, and I'm, like, walking around in this and, like, filming, and people are just, like, laughing and staring at me. But I didn't care. I wanted to, like, capture it, so, um, but yes, art
yeah.
comes in all forms, and you just gotta follow your intuition and, like, express yourself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It like so much came to mind when I saw that. I was like, wow, it's everything. It's what you wear. It could be installation, it could be video, it could be painting, and it's just
Mhm.
like everything kind of comes together. And I'm like, yeah, this is just as an artist, like
Thank you,
everything.
Lucas.
Yeah, I can see like this is you and this is your work, and like yeah, your work is beautiful.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna make more videos. I think they're really fun and creative and very, like, active too. Like, a lot of painting is like, you're sitting still or you're standing still for a long time, and, um well, you did the acting as well, but, acting is something different, and it's interesting
Yeah.
to me as well. It's just another art form, so it's cool. But, alright, well, I love everything that you said. I think it's gonna be so helpful for people as well. As we end, where can people find you, and where can people buy your work and follow you and everything?
Yeah, so my website is just lucasbononi.com, and then my
Mhm,
handle is Lucas Bononi Art
mhm.
on Instagram. So on Instagram, I tend to sell my work the most, but my website is more like my portfolio.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
All right. So, and I will put those in the show notes and the links below for you guys to go follow him. You can get on his mailing list and stay updated and, get his works before they're $1 million, before he hits that mark. And yeah, thank you so much, Lucas. And I will look forward to catching up sometime in New York when this, hopefully blows over.
yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks
well,
so much.
thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.